Every year, around 250,000 students worldwide graduate with an MBA. Around 35,000 of them are enrolled in an executive MBA program designed for students with previous work experience who then make a temporary return to university. Great shares of MBA graduates join prestigious companies in consulting, tech and investment banking. And I dare telling you, don't do an MBA, and especially don't do one to get into MBB, that is McKinsey, BCG or Bain. Yes, I'm bracing myself for the shitstorm. I'm aware that this video may make many MBA school recruiters and some MBA graduates very angry, but I pledge to offer you my honest advice on business and consulting careers here on You in Consulting, and I want to tell you the truth how I see it. The short summary of why I suggest you should not get an MBA to get into MBB, especially not enrolled in an executive MBA program that makes you return to university, is that I strongly believe there are much better uses of your time and money. With just a few exceptions, but before I break everything down for you, let me share with you what is on the menu of today's video. I will compile the most frequently mentioned benefits of an MBA program before I explain to you why I nevertheless advise you to not embark on an MBA. I am then going to explain to you why I question even those most commonly believed benefits. Just at the end of the video, I will mention a few specific scenarios where I believe doing an MBA may make sense, but now let me start with two disclaimers. First, I spent 5 years at McKinsey and met many executive MBA graduates, but I chose not to do an MBA myself. Instead, I chose to do a PhD at Imperial College London before I joined McKinsey. If you want to hear more about my PhD story and advice, let me know in the comments, otherwise let's park that for now. Second, I am from Germany, where a PhD or doctor degree is still highly regarded, whereas the highest ranked top MBA schools such as INSEAD or Harvard Business School are located elsewhere, where the majority of very ambitious German MBA students applies to. Before I explain to you why I advise you not to do an MBA, to be fair, let me reiterate the most frequently mentioned benefits of pursuing an MBA at one of the top MBA schools, especially in regards to the prospects of later pursuing a consulting career. First, unmatched business skills, especially valued by candidates with an educational non-business background, for instance a STEM subject that is science, technology, engineering or mathematics. Second, pre-selection. If you manage to get into a top MBA school, which we all know is a highly competitive process, it signals to the top consulting firms that you may actually be a very talented candidate. Third, top career services, where you are systematically prepared for the competitive application processes, for instance consulting case interviews. Fourth, easy access to top companies, not least due to the on-campus recruiting of top companies, which come to target schools to recruit top talents. And last but not least, fantastic alumni networks, benefiting you for the rest of your life. Now, am I mad to recommend you not to do an MBA? Let me explain. First of all, pursuing an MBA at one of the top schools is bloody expensive, especially if you spend the tuition fees from your own pocket. It is well known that the most prestigious MBA programs are money-making machines for the universities. The most expensive business school in the US charges more than $160,000 for its 2-year MBA program, and the most prestigious business schools in Europe charge $100,000 to enroll just on a 1-year MBA program. And as a picky economist, I stress we must add the so-called opportunity cost, which arises from the fact that you forgo 1 or 2 years of a juicy corporate salary while you go back to school. Against that, we would need to account the prospect of higher incomes enjoyed post-MBA. However, $100,000, that is not far from an annual gross entry salary of an experienced hire in McKinsey Europe. And you don't do the MBA alone, but together with other classmates. Just think about it, you could instead spend $100,000 on 1,000 professional coaching hours rated at $100. This equals to 3 hours of one-on-one learning for an entire year. And just saying, the education I offer to you here on my You in Consulting channel is entirely for free. So please kindly consider subscribing for more top quality content on business and consulting careers. And if you like it this far, give this video a thumbs up and share it with peers considering an MBA. Coming to my next argument for you to consider, If you want to do an MBA not just to get into McKinsey, BCG or Bain, but for other reasons too, then I indefinitely suggest you to wait until you have landed a top consulting job. If you join with a master's degree, many top consulting firms encourage you to take a break after a few years, which you then can use as well to pursue an MBA. The best is, if you then decide to do an MBA degree, the chance is very high that your employer will generously subsidize your tuition fees. And if you're able to deduct the tuition fees from your income tax bill, like you can do in Germany, as an employee of an international top consulting firm, you can often do an MBA virtually for free. If you want to study for an MBA to acquire what are called unmatched business skills, well, I must stress that you should not expect rocket science. I've talked to a couple of MBA graduates who previously studied business at university, and they all told me that during the MBA they did not anymore learn many new things beyond they had already learned during their previous business studies. But maybe you come with a STEM or other non-business background, then pursuing an MBA degree indeed makes more sense, in order to gain business knowledge that you may not have yet. Beyond that though, I often suspect that the idea to pursue an MBA degree is fed by the uncertainty or belief that your previous, say, engineering work and knowledge is not sufficient to make a career change into the business and consulting world, and that you would need the MBA knowledge as a prerequisite to join a consulting firm. I want to assure you that this is not true, and that in many cases what you have done in the past may already be absolutely good enough to join a consulting firm. These days, consulting firms value exotic, non-business backgrounds especially to increase credibility with their clients, and the share of experienced hires with previous work experience is growing. And don't forget, you will never be alone, but be part of teams onboarding you. Just saying, if you want to join McKinsey, BCG or Bain as an experienced hire with previous work experience, with or without an MBA degree, I've put together my top tips on your application strategy as an experienced hire in this video. Furthermore, the top consulting firms offer so-called mini MBA programs immediately before you start a job with them. Unfortunately, these fun mini MBAs are really open only to new hires without a background in business or economics, and I must say that realizing that I as an economist could not attend McKinsey's mini MBA was one of the saddest moments of my economics career. Still, of course, it always is a good idea to grow your skill set, but I'm stressing that you do not necessarily need to do an MBA for that. In fact, you can self-study, read books, do business or consulting internships, attend summer courses, and so on. Touching on another common motivation factor, if you have previous work experience and consider doing an MBA, one reason for you to do so may be that you adhere to this romantic idea of taking a break from your stressful corporate job and to go back to university for some more fun student life. Well, let me tell you that while I was pursuing my PhD at Imperial College London, I was living at the best place to live as a student in London, Goodenough College. Goodenough College hosts master and PhD students from all London universities, and many of my classmates were MBA students at London Business School. Do you know how many times they were complaining about their MBA student life? When you do an MBA, you are continuously pestered with zillions of group assignments, presentations, essays, book readings, and exams to complete, with much less leisure time than you wish. And you are even paying for that. After spending years at university during your bachelor and master studies and in your first job, I sincerely believe that you by now might know better how to spend your time wisest. By the way, guys, we have not even yet mentioned the stressful, time-consuming and costly preparations you have to undertake to apply for a top MBA program, including GMAT tests, essays, letters of recommendations, interviews and so on. I think we can all agree that this really is no fun. Let us review the benefits I listed earlier. I already explained that you do not need to do an MBA for the business skills. However, graduating from a top MBA school creates a great pre-selection characteristic, proving to the top consulting firms that already somebody else selected you during a competitive process. Hang on a minute though, the fact that on-campus recruiting starts immediately after you have started your MBA degree proves once again that the top consulting firms do not so much value you for the business skills that you are hopefully going to acquire, but for the fact that you managed to get in. Still, there are further issues with doing an MBA just to signal successful pre-selection. While the share of top school MBA graduates make it into MBB is of course much higher than an average, it varies by school. And even if you graduate from INSEAD or Harvard Business School, your odds are greater than elsewhere, but there's still no guarantee that you get into MBB. Still, your whole background counts. I do not want to go deep into this in this video, but keep in mind that your CV should not only be great, but also interesting. Instead of doing an MBA, like many other future MBB consultants do, you can do other things to build your CV while maybe having more fun. For instance, instead of spending a year on an MBA, you can apply for a 3-month internship at one of the top consulting firms and then embark on a world trip or pursue an interesting hobby. Don't forget, while pre-selection is great, consultants also love it when their applicants think outside the box. But I can talk about this for hours, so I better stop here. What is great about the top business schools are their fantastic career services, which support you with dedicated application and interview trainings, including the very challenging consulting case interviews. Why these services are great, I want to stress though that they are not unique. You can find peers for interview practice and learn how to master the consulting application process and business case interviews elsewhere. Just saying. A similar argument holds for the comfortable access to top companies, which all come to the campus of target universities for recruiting. This comfortable access has its advantages undoubtedly, but again it is not unique. If you have a great profile for other reasons than making it into a highly rated MBA program, the top consulting firms will invite you for interviews. This leaves us with the alumni networks of the business schools, which can lead to lifelong bonds and are fantastic. I grant that benefit finally. And whenever I ask MBA graduates about their MBA experience, they say it was not the education, but the people they met and connections they have made that they perceive as the greatest benefit of their MBAs. I'm very fond of networking myself. I just want to add that I'm not sure it is worth to spend the time and effort to do an MBA just to grow your network. For instance, in my case, having worked at McKinsey implies I'm part of one of the greatest alumni networks of this world. And of course, there are many other ways in life to build your network. So, while I grant there are some benefits to an MBA, can you see now why I was never attracted to pursuing an MBA degree and why I'm seriously not convinced that the cost-benefit ratio is always in your favor? To be fair, let me mention a few exceptions where pursuing an MBA may yield some special benefits or is smart. For instance, I think doing an MBA can be a great strategy if you have previously applied to top consulting firms and got rejected. You know that most of them pledge to reconsider you as a candidate after a certain period of time and once something substantial has changed in your life. After doing an MBA for 1 or 2 years, you should be in a position to reapply. Another scenario is if you combine your MBA with a broader plan to change your career. For instance, in this video, my former McKinsey colleague Milan explained how an MBA at INSEAD Singapore helped him prepare his transition from McKinsey Germany to McKinsey Vietnam's office. And then, of course, an MBA can make sense for you if you, for yourself and individually and in your country of living, value some of the benefits higher than I do and some of the costs of an MBA lower than I do. This is still great because then my video has made you make an even more conscious decision that you really want to do an MBA. I still think though you should not do an MBA just to get into MBB. Whether you want to do an MBA or not, in order to get into a top MBA program as well as into MBB, you will need to have top academic grades. Therefore, I want to make you aware of one of my favorite videos, which I explain to you my very own strategies on how to become a top 1% student. And now, I better get ready for the shitstorm. Looking forward to your comments and like and subscribe! Yay!